Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
All right, we're ready to start. Let's start.
Okay. Love is War wasn't good anyways.
Yes, it was. It got multiple seasons.
You loved it.
No,
I didn't.
Yeah, you loved it. You even mentioned it recently. No, it was Watakoi, Love is Hard. That's the one you liked.
Yes.
Yeah, Love is Hard for
Otaku.
Otaku. I like that one.
Yep.
One of those got 3 seasons and the other one didn't.
What are you trying to say?
That Love is War got 3 seasons and you don't know what you're talking about. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We're an anime podcast where every 2 weeks after we've watched a new anime, we come together on this podcast to talk about it like we're a book club. We mess it up. We get things wrong. So we turn the discussion over to our audience to improve it, fix it, tell us where we're wrong, and carry on that very conversation that we started here. And we're in the second or third of our very special episode. So the New Year's came. We watched a movie. We watched one older anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion, which was way more than we could chew, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And now we're on to talk about Trigun. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. So first off, we have the humanoid to my typhoon, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So, after watching episode 26 of Evangelion for our minisode, I had to go back and watch the rest, and I know you did too, Jason.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It was so cool. Like, there's moments, and obviously, spoiler territory, because I'm sure everybody's seen it by now. But
I think it's hey, also Bruce Willis is dead in the end of Sixth Sense, so just
right.
Wait,
exactly.
what?
If you don't know by now, then you were probably me like 2 weeks ago. But had to be hands down one of my favorite scenes was when that angel came down and had like the whippy arms and was cutting everybody's limbs off and stuff. And you think that the main 001 Eva is, toast, which if you've watched any anime, it's getting back up. But you don't know that it's going to get up, grow a human arm, crawl like a spider across the field, grab the thing, and start eating it. I have never seen a mecha anime do something that nuts and that crazy. Like, I loved that moment. And then everything that followed shortly after that with how he like disappeared into the tank and stuff. So cool. Love that entire sequence. It's got to be one of my favorites now.
Very cool. We also have the noodles to my noggin, Jeremy. Or Jason.
Speaking of noodle noggin.
Oh, no, you're done. You're good. Anyway, and my name is Troy. I can't let you go today, Jason. I know a new update came to Path of Exile. I can't handle it. Oh, yeah.
I've done other things besides watch one live stream.
Like you're gonna tell
It's not even released yet.
Oh, I thought it was. All right, then you're good. Next time I'll skip you. You're up.
So anyways, there's a huge update. Actually, speaking of older games, went back to modding Skyrim. Spent 4 days doing that.
I saw you. I was on Steam and I kept seeing Jason pop on and disappear and pop on and disappear. And I'm like, oh, I know what he's doing.
So the reason I wanted to try it out is because I saw a couple new mods that turn Skyrim into Sekiro.
Oh, God.
And it works phenomenally well. I am just dying over and over. It's fantastic. But besides that, I went back to Valheim because I hadn't tried their Hearth and Home update. As far as survival game goes, the thing I really appreciate about that game is food is technically optional. You don't die if you don't eat. And there's no differentiation between eating and drinking. But it gives you more health, it gives you more stamina, it gives you buffs. But like if you're just doing stuff around your base and you don't want to bother with eating, you don't have to. So I thought that was a pretty cool system. But anyways.
I'm not
That's what I've been
playing it
doing.
with you. You will not. That was directly aimed at me because my
No.
one complaint about games like that is you have to constantly collect food, and I don't want to deal with that when I'm playing a video game.
No.
I made that complaint to you. I know that was aimed at me. Targeted.
Do you feel attacked at this point?
All right. Hello, and my name is Troy. I watched the rebuild of Evangelion movies and finished those with my daughter. We had actually started them before we did our series. We did our series, and I had mentioned when we did our podcast that like everything was starting to get jumbled, but it was good to finally finish that. Everything Evangelion is now behind me. End of Evangelion, I feel, was a better ending, but I really liked that Shinji's character arc got to evolve to an even further stage than we've ever seen before in the new series. So that's what I say about that. But what I want to talk about today is the show Peacemaker. It is fantastic. John Cena is hilarious. John Cena, yeah, the guy, you can't see him. The wrestler, he is nailing the role. It is. I probably have already mentioned that I was already watching it, the first episode, but it gets funnier every episode. It's clearly James Gunn doing his stuff at full form and without as much control as Marvel. I think he said the only thing that they hampered him on is how much he could make fun of Batman. He said some horrible things about Superman and Aquaman, and apparently that's fine. But if Batman is called a bad word, the WB bosses will come calling. So you don't mess with Batman, apparently. But it is so good. And my wife is watching, and she's like, I don't like the Eagle. I'm like, okay, but the rest of the show is good. She's like, no, I just like the Eagle. The Eagle's the best. He has a little pet eagle that hugs him and stuff. It's great.
Oh, that's cute.
But yeah, highly recommend that show. That show is fantastic. Oh, and the new episode of Mandalorian. I mean, Boba Fett. That was great too.
Yeah, I heard he was in that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Imagine.
No, yeah, there was a whole episode with no Boba Fett. Just Boba Fett didn't show up for a whole episode in the show called Book of Boba Fett. That's the choice. But it was also one of the best episodes yet, so make what you will of that. Anyway, let's talk about Trigun. One of the classic OGs. I know I was watching it on Adult Swim along with Cowboy Bebop, Inuyasha. Sometimes Fooly Cooly would be there too. It was one of the originals. So let's go to our non-spoiler reviews. Jason, this was your pick and your first time ever seeing it. So Let's start with you.
I mentioned in Evangelion that felt very timeless. Like the animation was fantastic. The voice acting was well done. I can't say the same with Trigun. I had a good time watching it. Unfortunately, because this is my first viewing, I've only watched the first 12 episodes. I did not get into the story or really care too much about the characters till around episode 9. So I'm actually looking forward to finishing it because I would like to get a fuller opinion of it. But at this moment, for these first 12 episodes, that's kind of how I feel about it.
All right, Jeremy, what do you think? Knowing that you have a poster behind you of literally that.
Yeah, no bias here.
Yes. Yeah, no bias whatsoever. No, I totally see where you're coming from, like with the art especially. This has very strong 90s vibes. It's the shape of the faces, and I was talking to Tanya about this the other night, that there's something about the way they draw the like 1/4 or 3/4 views of these faces where the cheek like gets emphasized, and it just, I don't know what it is, but it bugs me. It reminds me of like the old Voltron style of art. Like I just don't like it. But I love the anime so much just because I know what the whole story is, and I've enjoyed it so many times. And I still think that like the comedy in it just hits perfectly for me. Like it's completely in my wheelhouse. Vash's silliness and his carefree, it appears to be a carefree nature. And just seeing that there's more going on underneath the surface. And you do get a little bit of a hint of that here and there. I think the anime does a pretty good job of that. But at the same time, these first 12 episodes are not they should not be seen as like what this anime is going to turn into. This is all just setting up and building the characters so that you have something upon which the story can be told on. So I still love it, but this is definitely the weaker half of the anime for me. So yeah, I still love it though.
Like I said, this is one of the first animes I've watched. And watching it this time, I can see the age on it. I watched the English dub. Jason, I know you did too. Jeremy, you watched the subtitle. The English dub has definitely aged, and we'll get into that more when we're in the spoiler section. But the art, there was definitely a few shots that age. There's also wacky sound effects put in that aren't usually done now, like spoing, crack. Like you hear people's necks break every 5 seconds sometimes, but no one's actually having necks broke. They're just adding in sound animations. There's some age to it, but it is the thing about this first half that I really love is how much it focuses on the character, and it starts to build the theme that it's going to look at in a heavier, darker way later. But it does start to build it here, and it makes sure that it gives you this chance to really look at these characters, especially our main one, under a microscope. So that when we start this journey in the second half, it's you can go along with it. All right. I also want to share a review that we got on Twitter. This is from Baka Talk again, one of our friends of our show and another show worth checking out. They are you can find them on their Twitter at Talk Baka. They said the show is great. I have watched it a couple of times, and each time I have laughed at the jokes. The way Vash sees the world and treats other people, even as he is automatically hated by people he meets, makes for some cool story elements and character interactions. Thank you guys for that review. Also, something I also really appreciate about this show is his connection to everyone in the world, despite the reputation that he has, despite how they treat him. I love the themes of that. So I agree.
I do chuckle just every time they say double dollars. Like,
or aisles.
Yeah.
You have to walk aisles away.
right.
And Yars.
All right. Let's go to our not spoiler section yet. The OP and the ED. What do you guys think of those?
They were okay. I watched them twice and I skipped them every time after that. Just nothing to write home about.
Yeah. It for me they're like indelibly etched because you couldn't skip them back on when I watched them on the cartoon channel. But now basically I think the only reason I like them is just because I had to watch them so many times, and so it's very nostalgic. But I do see where you're coming from, that there's nothing particularly special about them.
I do have to say something that I tried very hard not to let spoil my opinion of this anime. The guitar riff for the commercial break in every episode was just like nails on a chalkboard after like the third time. I was just like, I cannot. Why are you doing this every episode?
So wrong. It is fire. And one of my favorite parts. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I
can
normally-
have it.
I
and you
normally
can put it
hate
in your closet.
I hate electric guitars, but I gotta side with Troy on that one.
I wish anime would do more commercial break stuff like that. I love it. And the way it plays out and then it plays back in when you come in.
But there's no commercial on streaming services.
On Hulu, where this is streaming, yes, there is.
Oh, well, not on Funimation.
Fair enough.
Even without commercials, I think it's kind of fun because it almost adds like a little bit of punctuation to the scene. Like, hey, something happened, but it's completed now. And on to the next thing.
Oh, just to remind you, this is Trigun.
That's right.
I actually kind of more agree with Jason here. This is not one of the OPs that I remember fondly. In fact, I leaned over to my wife and like, Was this OP on Adult Swim, or did they just skip it? I barely remember this. I do enjoy the electric guitar that plays during it. The shots are just mostly clips from episodes. It's to highlight character designs. It's not really doing much compared to something like Cowboy Bebop or Evangelion. I do really like the outro song, the da 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 da. But again, that's also very much in Jeremy's boat of I've heard that one so many times. I don't know if it's just burned into my brain and I hear it and because it clicks. I know it. Yeah. So it's not the best OP in ED though, especially for a classic anime. And usually I'm like, guys, no, this is a classic anime. This OP is amazing. Not so much for Trigun. It was fine.
Yeah.
Now we're going on to spoiler sections, and like Jason mentioned, we just watched the first 12 episodes because we only have so much time with these flashback episodes. And just like Evangelion, the first half and the second half do kind of differ a little wildly, so we are just kind of dipping our toes into the Trigun world. But hopefully after these guys have been able to watch the rest of the stuff, and me, if I get around to it, we can bring some extra reviews like we did at the beginning of this episode. But let's go on to spoiler section. So spoiler warning has been dropped. And now we have to describe this world.
Without spoiling.
Well,
like without spoiling the second half.
Right. Yeah, because we don't know.
Describe it because I've only seen the first 12.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Okay. So it almost feels post-apocalyptic like Mad Max. It's mostly desert. There's some dangerous places and some dangerous gangs, but in the majority of cities, it feels very Old West with like not quite steampunk, but like there's technology there, and there's these factories that do production, but we don't know what they're producing. But they're very vital to life.
Is that the plants that you're talking about?
He's saying plants, but they're not factories.
Yeah, they're called plants.
People exist in these fairly large cities. They almost look like they're sandstone buildings. But yeah, it's very much like almost Old West, but with a modern-ish twist to it. But like in between the cities, it's Mad Max. So
that was very well done, and definitely the way to go for this podcast.
Yes,
because I would have messed that up so bad. So we start on this old saloon in the desert, and the guys in there are talking about this infamous character, this outlaw, Vash the Stampede, the humanoid typhoon, the 60 billion double dollar man, because that is the bounty on his head. and they're just talking about how crazy it is when he shows up and how evil he is and blah, blah, blah. A boomerang takes out half the top half of this saloon, and they go fleeing, and this gang fires machine guns into this place and destroy everything except for this old saloon sign that landed right in front of this customer in a red coat, our main character, Vash the Stampede. And we see him stand up, and he pulls out his giant 8-shooter, 6-shooter?
It's a Colt 45.
It's a 7-shooter, but
the 7-shooter. Thank you. It is not a Colt 45.
It says it on the side of the gun.
It does not.
It's not.
Anyway, he pulls out his giant hand cannon, and then we cut away. And that is our first introduction to Vash, but we will meet him more later. But it is time to talk about him, and since this is a spoiler section, we're assuming you know what you're about to meet. First looks were deceiving. Or were they? All right. What do you guys think of our main character, Vash the Stampede?
Okay, so again, this is the first 12 episodes. I kind of didn't like him for the first 9. He's silly, but he's godlike, which is odd. But then there's moments where he's trying to be a womanizer, but you can tell he's like not, his heart's not into it. But then he's always trying to do the right thing, which I think is, admirable for his character. But the fact that he's an amazing shot, but will never intentionally kill anybody, especially with his gun, is a little confusing at this point. And also his gun's a little confusing at this point. Like the barrel is underneath whatever is on top. And I don't understand his gun. Also we come to find out his left arm is robotic. So that's a thing. And it makes me question if his legs are also robotic, but I don't know. Just a theory for upcoming episodes. But yeah, he's a little too silly for my taste. He felt very 90s anime protagonist. I'm the hero. I'm going to be the good guy the best I can be, but I don't want to hurt anybody kind of thing. Living in this post-apocalyptic world. So yeah, he's definitely an interesting character.
So obviously I love this guy. He kind of makes the anime for me, even though I so many of the other characters I also love. So he doesn't have to carry it all on his shoulders, but he does such a good job. He hits exactly where I like comedy. And I know that it's something that he's not necessarily let's say, for instance, if you have somebody who's depressed or who is dealing with things that they have to forever remain the optimist and the idealist, sometimes they effervesce a little bit too much. And he does that. And it is hysterical to me to watch it because the way that they portray it and the way that he acts, he goes so far overboard that he almost seems insane sometimes. And I don't know. That's for some reason that lands in my wheelhouse as like just the funniest thing. But yeah, I mean, there's good reasons for it, and we learn what those are later. So I'm not gonna spoil that. But knowing that we're kind of seeing things in a way through other characters' eyes, like I want to say Marl's. I think it's Marl is how it's pronounced.
Meryl in the English dub.
Meryl, yeah, that's what it is. I always pronounce the A wrong. Meryl, which we haven't really introduced her yet, but she's kind of the straight man, right? Mm-hmm. And so where Jason's coming from is very much how Meryl sees him. And I think that's really good writing on their part to where the audience actually sees Vash in the same way as this straight man character. But yeah, I think that's probably as much gushing as I should do on Vash.
I actually always thought that this trope started with Vash, and I actually, when we were watching this, had looked at like some old reviews, and they're like, oh yeah, he's a Rurouni Kenshin type character when this had come out. So Rurouni Kenshin was first. I think we watched Trinity Blood last year, 2 years ago. I think he's very much modeled, the main character that is very much modeled after Vash.
Yes.
Very silly, but also, hey, I'm also uber powerful compared to everyone else around me. Mm-hmm. I love that trope. That trope works for me. And Vash is the bar of that trope. And the insanity and how far he goes. I laughed out loud 3 times. And the first episode is probably some of the silliest he gets. He is screeching around. He is crawling around like a spider. He is laughing and making funny faces. You'd almost think this is a pure comedy after the first episode. And you couldn't blame anyone for thinking that. And I laughed very hard each time. But my favorite thing about Vash is how layered he is. There is the Vash he presents to everyone around him. There is the Vash that is his reputation because of all the events that happened to him. There is the stoic, sad Vash. And then there is the truth Vash. We only get, in what we watch, the only time we get even close to that is in the very last episode 12. When Millie walks in and she sees his eyes and like immediately backs out of the room, like, no, that's scary. That is not someone you want to stand in a room with. And then they come back in and he's got that warm, soft Vash the Stampede face, which is what's underneath the crazy face.
Yes.
I love those layers, and I love identifying those layers, and I love that there's a character that comes in later that identifies those. We'll talk about him, that can see right through most of those layers. But I think Vash the Stampede is one of the best characters. Trigun's not as good as Cowboy Bebop, but I think Vash stands up with any character from Cowboy Bebop and how complex they are on his own. That's my gushing.
Except that it is as good as Cowboy Bebop.
Yes, in its own way. It's not trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You're right in a lot of ways. I don't think Cowboy Bebop aged. Like when we watched Cowboy Bebop, I don't think it aged as poorly. I think
I
it held
agree
up
with you.
better.
Yeah.
And so did my God. This is probably of the retro stuff we've watched. This is one of the ones that have kind of shown its age the most.
Mm-hmm.
But still wonderful to watch.
Well, I think Outlaw Star probably
Yeah,
might have
you're
outdone
right.
it a little
That's
bit.
true. All right. Now we meet our two
Outlaw
audience
Star.
characters. Well, I take that back. We meet a random bounty hunter who won't be important as he's taking up the bounty of Ashley Hunter.
I love how they give him a character design and a conversation and everything that makes you think he's gonna be important, and they even build him up a little bit, and then he's nothing.
Yeah. Loose Ruth, is that his name? Loose Ruth.
I remember the Ruth part. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, this is Vash the Stampede.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, he gets the bounty, and then so we see that he's a bounty hunter. But then we meet up with our two insurance agent ladies. So Vash the Stampede, the name the humanoid typhoon, is not an accident. Everywhere he goes, destruction reigns, and this insurance company is sick and tired of paying for claims. So they have sent two of their agents to go find Vash the Stampede, make contact with him, and trail him, and do whatever they can to stop the chaos that he creates. And also let them know when they do or do not need to pay for insurance claims. This is Meryl Streif and Millie Thompson. Meryl Streif is the leader of this duo, and Millie is her junior assistant. Meryl is a short, young, purple-haired, short-haired, fiery temper, and where Millie is this giant of a woman with a soft heart and a childlike mind. But let's start with Meryl. What do you guys think of Meryl?
I actually latched onto these characters much harder than I did Vash. But Meryl is pretty funny because she's just this mixture of emotions trying to stay as professional as she can. And she also realizes that she works for an insurance company. She's not a law officer. She's not some sort of peacekeeper. She's just like, okay, how do I make this as least damaging as possible? And I love that concept of an insurance company being so upset with an outlaw that they sent out insurance agents.
Yes.
On its face sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's hilarious at the same time because I love the first time we meet these two. Millie's enormous Gatling stun gun falls out from underneath her coat. It's what? So yeah, I did get a kick out of these two.
Yeah. I remember when I was first watching this, the very first time, I was bored when these two characters came on board, and I kept waiting. Whenever we would get long scenes, drawn out scenes of Meryl and Millie, I was kind of annoyed. I wanted to move on and get past it, but I think it was because I was a teenager. I was like, they're boring. I want the action. Bring Vash back. But looking at it now, especially since I watched the sub version, to me, Meryl came across very differently than even the last time or two that I watched it, which I've always watched it in the dub prior to this viewing. And she had a sort of sense of a bit more affection, I thought, or fondness of Vash once she realized it was Vash and got past the frustration that this was Vash. But it is a really fascinating thing, not just that the insurance company sent out these two insurance agents, but that their job is to get close to him, try and work his damage control, and if necessary, straight up assassinate him. They are also hitmen that are there to kill him once they have subdued him with donuts. And I think it is fascinating, a fascinating approach. It's a story beat that I've never seen or heard of since.
The magical box of donuts
cool.
that she pulls out every once in a while is hilarious.
According to trivia, apparently donuts is Vash's favorite food.
That's my favorite part of the joke is that they keep trying to give donuts to these giant evil men, and it's that's ridiculous. But honestly, the real Vash the Stampede loves donuts.
He loves
a perfectly legit move for him. So it actually, it's oh no, that actually would make sense with what we know about Vash.
Yep.
Yeah. I love Meryl, but definitely more now. I agree with you, Jeremy. Like when you're young, you're like, I want to see Vash do either hilarious stuff or amazing stuff. Come on,
Yeah.
Meryl definitely like stole more of the show than I did. Episode 2, I was a huge Meryl fan in episode 2. I forgot how funny she was in that episode. We'll talk about it then, but yeah, she was really good. I definitely appreciate her more in my older age.
Yep.
All right, and then Millie, who gotta be a fan favorite. Jason,
Yeah.
you love Millie, right?
I think she's adorable because she's this enormous, like she's very tall woman, and she's obviously very strong, and she's also very strong-willed, but she's willfully naive and just kind of doesn't put two to two together. But when there's something that she's gonna do for what she believes is good, nothing gets in her way. She's just gonna do it. Um, and it just kind of led to some really hilarious situations. And I love that she spots Vash for who he is, like nearly on the spot, and Meryl just completely denies it and is unwilling to listen. And I think that's one of the things, because she's so naive. Well, actually, not. She's not. She's willfully naive, because I don't think she's dumb. I think she just sees things for what they are, and she just kind of goes about life the way she believes it needs to happen. And also, I love her stun Gatling gun. What?
Yeah.
It fires these weird, like
4 giant like staples, but like an X shape.
right.
Looks like it would really, really hurt.
Right, but it's non-lethal.
Oh, of course. Which is okay. Yeah, that's another thing, but I'll mention it when the boomerang comes back. But yeah, Millie's awesome. Again, same thing as Meryl. I was a little bit bored when I was a teenager, but now I actually find her to be really entertaining. She's very funny. I love that you described it as willfully naive, because I think that's probably the best description you could come up with this character, because she's also kind of an intuitive genius. It's not just with Vash, but there's other times too where like there's a chess game going on and she wins the match with one move. And that's along with that's playing the game that another character who is presumably pretty good tactically couldn't see that move, thought he was screwed. So there's something there. Also the fact that like there's another scene where she's in a bar and she's like, but I want pudding. And the guy's like, we don't serve pudding here. Stop being mean to me. I want pudding. And so you think, and I thought, this is a bar. They don't serve pudding. They serve alcohol. But a few moments later, she leaves with armloads of pudding. So like she knew it and she was right. The place had pudding and the guy was being mean to her. Like, and so she's great. She is very observant. She sees a lot more than what she lets on, and she plays the naive card, and it's fantastic. Very entertaining.
I don't really have much more to add other than what you guys have said. She makes me laugh every time she's on screen. The joke where she gets drunk and strips in front of everybody, off screen, off camera, but it's like, oh, that's classic Millie.
Yep.
I also, just another part of her insight is that her insights into other characters, especially Meryl, who Meryl's like, oh, we're gonna follow him because we have to, but I hate that guy. And she's like, no, you care about Mr. Vash. We have to go follow him. And not for the job, but because you care. Like, she's the person who recognizes that. She's great. Millie's great.
It's a beautiful day. It'd be a great day to take the day off. Nice try.
So we get the introduction sheet for them that Jason mentioned, where they go into a saloon. Some men are less than polite to them, say some off-putting things, and then Millie's giant stun gun falls out, and she just like heaves it up with one hand on her shoulder, and they leave. And then they go looking for Vash the Stampede, and we catch up with that gang that had attacked who we know or will know is the real Vash the Stampede. And he's hiding in the sand with a straw to breathe through, and captures a guy, steals his bullets, and there's this great interaction between him and the guy's saying mean things. He's like, "Oh, if I kill you, you're like your wife and children." No, I'm pretty offensive. Most women don't like me. Oh, well, that's really bad for you. And then Vash throws his gun to knock out a guy, even though we get a flashback to back at the bar with that epic scene where he pulls out his gun and click, click, and his gun opens and all the bullets come out. He had an empty gun. He's been out of bullets. The bullets are expensive in this world. And so now he's just trying to steal some bullets, but then he throws his gun anyway, so it didn't help.
I wonder if that was the guy's gun he took the bullets from.
Might have been. That makes sense. He does lose it at one point, but he gets it back real quick. He gets captured by this gang because the hostage he takes doesn't matter to this giant of a man with the boomerang who throws it and hits them. Doesn't hit Vash, but does hit the other guy. But they capture Vash.
So this is one of those things that in a modern anime, and I have to mention this because normally this would bug the heck out of me, and I would demote an anime by a point at least. If you have a boomerang that cleaves a mountain or a building in half, cuts it cleanly, and then you hit a guy with it, and that guy doesn't get cut cleanly in half, that physics thing is going to be an issue for me. But I think this one got in under the, teenage Jeremy. So I don't know why it gets a pass, but it gets a pass.
When I enjoyed things.
Yeah, exactly. Back when I could turn my brain off.
Jason would like to note that it is a 45 long Colt.
Huh.
Yeah, wait until you get to the second half of the season and then tell me that.
I'm just saying, all I did was post a wiki link. That's all.
Yeah. Don't read it, though.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Just say the title of it is Long Colt 45.
Because that may be the core, like the original.
Who has two thumbs was right. This guy.
Ha!
All right. So with Vash captured, now the insurance ladies show up, and they assume this gang leader, because of the rumors they had heard about Vash, is Vash the Stampede. They try to give him donuts. At the same time, that bounty hunter we met earlier, he shows up, also thinking this gang leader is Vash. The gang sees the bounty hunter and is like, wait, his coat is red on the inside. We heard about a red coat, and this guy is clearly an idiot who's flopping around on the ground. So that must be Vash the Stampede. He's trying to trick us by pretending we're Vash the Stampede. So they get in a fight. The insurance ladies run away. Vash manages to escape, and he runs away with them, eating the donuts. There's a crazy... Go ahead.
I love that he's keeping up on foot while they're running as fast as they can on top of these two creatures called Thomases that are basically like chocobo / horse things.
They look like kiwis.
Yeah, they
longer legs, but run like a chocobo.
Yeah, and he's keeping up.
Can I just mention how dumb the gun for the bounty hunter is? That it's basically two rifles strapped together. That he fires one, spins it, and then fires the one that was like on top, but now it's underneath.
Yep. What's even worse is that he keeps shooting the same spot, even though the other guy's holding up a piece of armor to block it. So like he doesn't try shooting elsewhere. He just keeps shooting that same spot.
You can mention it, but you can't call it stupid because it looked cool.
Well,
I
guess
think
that's a matter of opinion.
The insurance ladies decide they got to go back. They have a job to do, and they got to deal with Vash the Stampede. So they pay, who's really Vash the Stampede, $100 to go warn the town. Vash the Stampede is around. You got to evacuate. So they go back, and they try again to give the donuts to the gang leader, who is now teamed up with the bounty hunter, because they both realized we're idiots, and we just let Vash the Stampede go. Mm-hmm. They kidnap the insurance ladies as hostages. Vash the Stampede comes back, saves them, ends up cornered on a cliff, and using dodging and very fast reflexes, makes the boomerang. So this giant boomerang is attached to also a cord that can come back in this cyborg guy's arm. He wraps the cord around the arm and makes it come back and ties them all up. Also, the boomerang hits the bounty hunter, so he's knocked out, and the day is saved. And Vash the Stampede does his his laugh. Now, I watched the English dub, like I mentioned. Johnny Young Bosch, the voice of Ichigo, classic, like the coolest voice you ever heard, right? Like one great thing about Bleach is Ichigo's English dub voice is cool. They let him go crazy here. Like his laugh is just insane. Like I can't believe you let a person do that into a microphone and then put it back into my ears. It's bad. It's a bad laugh, but it's so bad it makes me laugh every time. It is great.
Yep.
But then some grenades go off, and half that cliff falls down and destroys the town. But Millie and Meryl write their report. It wasn't technically Vash the Stampede's fault. Vash the Stampede wasn't even here. It was the bounty hunter who brought grenades, and they were faulty, and they blew up a town.
But
Vash
because it was evacuated, no fatalities.
It was evacuated thanks to the Red Coat Man, and no one died. And the rumor of Vash grows. So we see people talking about, did you hear about the town that was destroyed by Vash the Stampede? And it was a miracle that no one died. That happens a lot.
A lot.
Mm-hmm. So that first episode was our introduction to the characters. This next episode really solidifies who they are. And it starts with a water baron tycoon shooting at someone in a red coat. And then we catch up with our insurance ladies, and they come to this abandoned town that shouldn't be abandoned, but it's gone dry. There's no water. They're dying of thirst. Go to the well. There's no water in there. There's literally an old man and young boy who walk by just to provide exposition for them so they know where to go. Yeah. I literally wrote exposition walks by. So they go to the mansion of the water baron, and the person who opens the door is our Vash the Stampede.
We also see someone who looks like Vash the Stampede at the intro.
In that,
getting shot by the water baron.
I said that, didn't I?
No.
You did say that.
You did?
Yeah. He mentioned that when he started the episode.
Huh. I thought you said there was a water...
You're here, right?
I think so.
Okay. It's okay, Jeremy. I don't listen to myself either. I honestly, I wasn't sure, so that's how good I'm paying attention. Anyway, yeah, Vash the Stampede is here, and he has been hired as a bodyguard because the Water Baron's land was attacked, and he's introduced, and the Water Baron has a special guest. It is the Marshal's daughter?
I thought they were uncle and niece.
No.
I thought she was a relative of some kind.
I thought they were relatives.
No, she was a special guest because she was the daughter of like a important director of something, and he's like, she's my guest, but they're not related.
Okay. Anyways, that's not really important.
Yeah, what's important is that he has a special guest, and clearly, Vash the Stampede is only here for one reason, and it's because of this really cute girl, and he's super infatuated with her. And this scene, like I said, Meryl seals a lot of this episode for me. Vash is talking about how he always aims for love and his bullets never miss when he aims for the heart, and he's pointing finger guns at this hot girl. But meanwhile, Meryl is like, why am I in the crosshair? I don't want to. And then he goes bang, and her reaction is like, this is so stupid. She clutches her chest, but it looks like she got shot.
Yeah.
It's not only just foreshadowing, but just really great physical comedy. It really works for me. I laughed so hard. And she like falls out of her chair and is like, it's so stupid what he's doing. I can't handle it. And then, another great scene. When I was rereading my notes for this podcast, I actually laughed out loud remembering this line. So Meryl takes the Water Baron, but just behind a curtain. Same room, just behind a curtain that he was keeping the girl in. It's like, hey, I have a guest. He's behind this curtain for some reason. Yeah.
That was weird.
That was weird. But they go behind that curtain. And she's like, that's not Vash the Stampede. That's just some idiot. And Millie turns to Vash outside and goes, she's actually really nice. She's really nice and loud. That joke worked for me just thinking about it. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, Vash, the Water Baron says, I know he's just a random guy. Whoever showed up, I was going to say was Vash the Stampede. He was the first guy to show up, so it works. I just want the legend of Vash the Stampede to be here. That way the town evacuated and the bad guy will also leave, and I'll be okay. Vash then goes about his guard duties because he hears the shower coming from her name is Mariana. Shower coming from her room, so he does guard duty while you're dropping from a rope outside of her window to peek in. But she's not there. The shower's just running. And Millie walks in to tell her who Millie and Meryl have been hired as extra bodyguards for free so they could see if Vash the Stampede really shows up. She sees Vash hanging out. And in the English dub, every time these two characters meet, they have this, hello, hello. even though he's hanging upside down to do peeping.
What you doing?
Yeah, what you doing?
Checking for spooks.
Yeah. Meryl sees Marianne sneaking around in the Water Baron's office. His name is Cliff. And then we see Cliff, Marianne, and Vash have dinner together. And Marianne's very upset about the way he's been managing the water and actually leaves early. And then Vash goes to check on her. And he's like, hey, can I come in? And she goes and opens the window. So he's at the door, meaning he's been hanging outside to peep on her before. And when he walks in the door, she's like, oh, you're over there. He tries to flirt with her, and he's doing just really bad, like, dramatic hero stuff, like, the adventures in your eyes, you'll never be alone. Like, trying to insinuate, like, you and me will be together forever. And she's like, I think there's a bad guy outside. You should go check. Oh, okay. He like has to jump outside, but it's just Meryl and Millie having their dinner by the fountain.
So he tackles
Meryl.
Yep.
They find out that Marianne and Cliff both go missing, and so they're searching around. And Millie makes a mention of like, what about outside of her window? And Meryl's like, wait, why would Vash be outside her window? And Vash is like, oh no, you see, the thing is, the window is like the thing that you have to check. And but they find a secret compartment.
My favorite part of that exchange actually is Millie goes, well, he was looking for spooks, and she goes, Meryl goes, well, what's a spook? He's, well, you know, the thing. He never describes what he's talking about. Just made up.
I also love the fact that in one of the scenes, the Water Baron actually says, I've instructed her to draw the curtains on her window.
Yeah.
Vash is like, oh, I don't know why you do that. I don't know anything about this. I'm leaving now.
No, it's better than that. He's like, oh, I would never. And then he punches himself as hard as he can in the face, right. and then goes, that's a great idea, sir.
I don't know any reason why you would do that. I'm going to go now.
So on to what really happens in this episode. We find out Marianne is actually a marshal who's investigating Cliff because he's been mismanaging the water on purpose to raise up the prices. And he actually has a huge reservoir underneath the house in this secret room. And she's the one he had shot at the beginning. She would have been investigating, and so that's how this whole thing started. Mm-hmm. He holds her at gunpoint, getting ready to kill her, and the Vash comes tumbling down the water. He's gonna sneak up behind them, and it just like falls crazily down there. But he gets the Cliff to shoot at him, and Cliff ends up like pulling out like General Grievous guns, like arms spring out of his coat, and starts shooting. But he shoots his own machinery, and everything explodes, and the entire town floods with water. The marshal.
It's important to note that this is the first time that people actually mention, is he dodging bullets?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a suspicious scene where he fires the first shot at Vash, and Vash nearly does like a Matrix agent dodge. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, that was purposeful. That wasn't, oh, you missed me because I'm so wacky.
Right. Yep.
It is different. He's not dodging bullets. He's dodging where he can tell where the bullet's going to go before it's fired and moving.
And the Baron mentioned that. He's like, you can tell where it's going to go depending on my movements.
Mm-hmm.
That's important because Vash Vash isn't like faster than a bullet, even though it's probably close, but he can be hit. Yeah, Machinery brought up everything, and then he's talking to Marianne. She's like, "Man, if you were Vash's Stampede, I would have to fall in love with you, but I'd also have to arrest you." And so Vash just wanders away. Oh, I thought it was gonna work out. I don't want to get arrested. The next episode, it has to do with Vash trying to get his gun fixed. He actually pointed out that his gun. He points out in this episode, his gun shoots to the left. And it's
3 inches at 10 yards.
Yeah, it's very inaccurate, despite how accurate he seems to sometimes be. Mm-hmm. He's there to get his gun fixed, but we're shown a drunk who gets kicked out of bars, and he bumps into Vash. He bumps into Vash and then makes Vash feel guilty about it, and asks Vash to buy him a drink.
Yeah, it does.
Oh yeah, the wrapping around him and hugging him.
And I do like how Millie and Meryl come across him, and he's like, "Help!" And they're like, "Oh, well, we got other stuff to do."
Yep.
So Vash agrees to have a drink with this guy, and then while they're at the bar, he asks about this gunsmith that he's looking for, and they point out that he's a drug, clearly insinuating it's the guy he's with, right?
And Vash knew who he was the entire time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There is something that's interesting. Vash almost always gets really sick from liquor.
Yeah.
Do you think that's on purpose, Jeremy?
What do you mean? Like he drinks so much that he makes himself sick on purpose, or that there's some kind of reaction from the liquor?
That there's based on what you know about Vash the Stampede, that would be spoiler for anybody else who hasn't seen the show.
For sure.
That alcohol affects him way worse than other people.
I don't see a reason why it would, but it might. I certainly haven't ever read any information indicating that it would.
Yeah, me neither. I just noticed like every time he drinks, he throws up in this. Other characters are like, "Oh, that was a lot we drank last night," and Vash is like, "Oh God, I'm dying."
Yeah, they even show that his vision is blurred at times, so he's not faking it. Because a lot of the most majority of what he does is faking things. So I initially thought that's what it was, but there's sometimes they show it's not faking. Even
in this episode, so they drink a ton. And there's a scene where like they throw his gun out because he had to give his gun at the bar. They throw the gun out. It smacks him in the face. He's like, "What was that? I think it was my gun." But he also perfectly catches it off to the side. And then later when they go to Marlin's home, like Vash passes out, but then he gets back up and tucks in Marlin. But we do learn Marlin's history, that he was a gunsmith until his family was gunned down during a bank robbery. But he found out the bank robbers were using his guns that he had sold them earlier. It was literally guns he had made. So he's I'm just going to be a drunk. And he tells Vash, the reason I'm just a drunk is that way I'm not adding anything to the world, and that keeps everything balanced. I'm not ruining anything. I'm not helping anything. It keeps things equal.
Yeah, and in that particular bank robbery, his wife and child were killed by the guns he made.
Troy just said that.
What?
What? Yeah, I literally just got done with that.
What the heck? Okay, I was up really, really late on Thursday, and I think it might be affecting my hearing tonight.
I did like how this was more commentary on the pacifism, like this episode as a whole, like doing absolutely nothing and trying to be completely 100% neutral sometimes can still hurt people. And being neutral is in of itself a choice.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love we talked about this in the pre-show. I love the themes of pacifism throughout this, and how Trigun is really just a deep examination of pacifism, the costs, the benefits, and not really even taking a full side of it. It doesn't say you need to be a pacifist, but it says like it comes at a cost. What about the people that you can't help because of it? But yeah, this is that first step of saying pacifism with no action isn't doing anything. That's not an answer. That doesn't fix anything. That doesn't help anybody. And that's what this episode is about. A bank robbery is happening because of a gang that comes in, and Vash is hiding in a garbage can, and he decides to go help, even though Marlin tells him not to. But Jeremy, I want you to talk about the garbage can hat.
I love the garbage can hat. Okay, so it's the same kind of shape where you have that really wide brimmed hat that's always found on Wanderers, an old samurai movie. And it's like in Iria, the Zeram animation, that's what they modeled the character after and that, because everybody's going to know
Only
that
4
reference.
people know that anime.
Yes,
and 3 of
us
them are
3.
here.
Yes. And it's just really cool because, the idea that he's in a garbage can, which this is Vash. This is something Vash would do. And yet he turns that into, like, in his own head, he thinks he looks cool with the garbage can on his head walking towards the bad guys. And so they're also capturing what that looks like from his perspective, that this cool wanderer walking through town going to face them. It did kind of crack me up that the garbage can blocked bullets. The lid blocked bullets. So, like, what is that garbage can lid made of?
They might not have very much aluminum in this world.
That's true. It might be like, I don't know, cast iron or something.
Iron, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved this scene, and it does come into play later because there's a scene where Millie and Meryl are looking for Vash, and Millie walks over and she like lifts up a trash can lid and looks inside, and Meryl's like, "Why are you looking in there? He would never be in there." Like, yeah, that's Millie. She knows.
Yep, absolutely. So Vash does approach this gang. He pops their tire, and then he doesn't have his gun. He left it with Marlin to fix.
Oh, that's right. And the main bad guy of this bank robber group, he's like, I'm Vash the Stampede.
Right. Yeah. Vash does snap a guy's neck in this, but apparently it was a non-fatal snap.
Exactly. I was thinking that too when I was listening. I was like, yeah, that was a crack. What did they just do?
More than one crack. There was like 30 bones in it. Crack, 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 crack.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that man's dead.
It's chiropractic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says to the gang leader, I thought Vash the Stampede would be more handsome. Holds him at gunpoint with his finger in his coat. But then the townspeople come forward and using guns. I always took it that they're all Marlin's guns.
Mm-hmm.
But I think only the bartender herself says this is a Marlin special, and I don't know for sure if everyone's Marlin's gun. But the thing is that Marlin, having made guns, has now given people a way to defend themselves. That his guns were not just for evil; that there is good that can come from his work.
And that's what's funny is that it was like he had to be reminded of that because that's what he originally made the guns for, was to defend against a gang. So it's like it had to be a repeat, so he could be like, "Oh, that's right, this is good."
And then Marlin gets involved in because this gang leader's his gun is like crazy rockets about to come out of 100 barrels, but Marlin comes up behind him and puts his finger to the back of his head and is like, "Hey, I got a gun to your head." So they defeat the gang, and Vash drinks that night to celebrate, and Marlin brings him his gun. And he's like, "Hey, have a drink." And Marlin's like, "Nope, I'm sober now." And then Vash leaves, and the insurance ladies just happen to be following him in the same direction.
Such a coincidence.
Oh, yeah. I love that her luggage bag is pink. She's dragging this pink luggage bag along through this dirty, dusty desert.
So our next episode starts with Vash coming to a mass grave. And I mean mass, like dunes and dunes of desert covered in grave markers. And then this town is locked down to travel due to a sandstorm. And Meryl and Millie are inside this bar where this young woman is playing poker and beating everybody. But then these bandits come in and they take this young woman hostage. They call him the Earl. So there's this rich guy who owns the land around there, and the sheriff that works for him are trying to negotiate the hostage situation and get the daughter back. And the sheriff is clearly kind of a scumbag. And then Vash walks in. There's a scene in the Cowboy Bebop movie where Spike Spiegel wears headphones to walk into a hostage situation and like coolly defuse it. That's not what happens here. He walks in with headphones, bebopping along.
Oh, I love this.
Walks in with guns in his face, and then is screaming like a banshee, "Help me! Help me! Help me! Taken hostage!"
Immediately captured and tied up.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Which, if you know Vash, this is not an accident. He doesn't
Oh.
actually accidentally do stuff like this, but the way he refuses to do it cool, like he's got to do it the stupidest way possible. It's a very nice dichotomy from Spike Spiegel. I love it. Yep. So yeah, he's tied up. The young woman says something to the bandits, and they get really upset with her. She's something like, they're not gonna.
My dad will pay it. It's a pittance. It's nothing. Pocket change.
You'll be done with this. And then they get really mad at her. And they're clearly like personally upset with her. And a guy has a gun in her mouth, I think, goes that far. And the bandit leader pulls the guy back. But then when he
grab the cylinder to keep it from turning.
And put his
thumb in the hammer.
Yeah.
And then when he pulls his thumb out, there's gum in there, which Vash had been chewing when he walked in. And he's like, "Whoa, wait a second." Meanwhile, that creepy sheriff has hired psychopath bandits to go in and just kill everyone but the girl in the whole saloon. They bust a bunch of the bandits that were guarding the outside. And they break in, and Vash has to spring into action, and he does stop them and even gets his gun, but he's not able to kill one. Luckily, a fan falls down and takes out one of the guys that he missed, but he can't bring himself to kill anyone. But luckily, Millie has a giant stun gun, which can take care of anyone for him. And we learned, so the deal is this gang leader and this gang, their families owned this land and had worked it and made it prosperous, and then a gang had come in and killed everyone and took it over, and that is the Earl, and the sheriff was one of his men, and it was the Earl's gang that did this, and this is one of the sons of the people who died, and he's there for his vengeance, and tells the girl, like, your father was a bad man, you thrive off the blood of our families. So Vash goes out not only to check on the wounded bandits, but to negotiate. And the Earl gives himself up. And we've been noticing the sheriff saying, like, you're getting soft. And the Earl's like, whatever it takes, save my daughter, save my daughter. Clearly actually cares about his daughter, is not as evil as he used to be. And the fact that an evil man could love his daughter. Lets the bandit leader shoot at him. And Vash starts crying, but the bandit leader doesn't kill him. But then the sheriff takes everyone hostage. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to kill all of you and say that worked out for me and blame everybody. Vash springs into action, and Millie, turns out she has 50 Derringers under her coat.
Yep.
Actually, so I'll have to say, I mentioned before that the animation I wasn't impressed with. This particular scene is actually really well animated because she just has this really cool pose. Her coat flies open, coat. And she's literally got like 50 single shot guns under her coat, which seems ridiculously overkill. And also, wouldn't that be really heavy?
Yes.
Also, if you need that many shots, maybe not just one shot at a time per gun.
Right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But also, I love it. And we find out she's Dillinger Cheryl. Derringer Merrill.
Yep.
And Stun Gun Millie is their gunman names.
Yep. And that's where the fan got shot down was.
Yep.
Merrill took it out.
Yeah.
You said that, didn't you?
I did. No, not that it was Merrill. I left that part out. You did good.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
And then Vash forces the sheriff to repeat after him that this world is made of love and peace. Vash's Vash's whole motto in life is that he is a hunter of love and peace. That is everything to him. And
Why does he cross his fingers when he does it?
I don't know. I just love that he does.
I think
love
it's learned.
and peace.
I think it's learned behavior.
Yeah. When I had first seen it, I thought he was doing the peace sign, and I'm like, no, it's crossed fingers, and I don't know what that is. I think he's indicating love and peace together. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and the next one, we have Vash eating in a restaurant, and these gang members run in to kill him, and he takes them out with a toy gun from a kid that was nearby, and he's able to defeat them. And he's like, "Oh, thank goodness!" But they were there to kill him because he was Vash's Stampede. They wanted the $60 billion double dollars. And then the restaurant, thanking him, gives him some free pancakes, and then they all pull guns on him, and the entire town ends up trying to hunt Vash the Stampede.
Which ends up just annihilating their town.
Yeah, they're firing rockets at their own bell tower as he's, running around and saving kittens. And
Yeah.
Should we talk about the cat?
I love that black cat. That was one of the and I don't know if it's the same sound in both English and dub, but the meow.
Yep.
Just got me every time because the way it's drawn is amazing. I know it's from that era of we need to have an animal mascot, but this one worked so well because of how silly it was.
Yeah.
So GamerDad actually tweeted us, or he reminded me that this is made by the same guy who made Blood Battlefront Blockade. Is that the right name?
I think you're right.
And the black cat shows up in that too. It's a director trademark or creator's trademark is that he has that cat. I remember watching it the first time and being like, but what does the cat mean? Is that like someone watching Vash? Is it like God that's coming in? Nope. It is just a reoccurring joke that is there for, hey, there's a cat. All right, on with the episode.
Yeah. I had to look it up too because there's one shot where the cat has an orange ear.
Yeah.
And so I thought, are these all different cats? And we're just left thinking they're the same cat. But apparently this is like Lord Black Cat, the Black Cat space. Like it is supposed to be the same cat. So it even shows up in Wild Arms, the video game, Second Ignition, I guess. So like it everywhere he goes, this director, it's a cat.
Meryl and Millie come to the town and they see the destruction. They're like, oh, this is it. We have found Vash the Stampede. And so they come into the town. They're trying to like put some order to this chaos. Everyone's just shooting in random directions. Like they're walking through with a megaphone and everyone's just firing at different places. And then the mayor of the town calls everyone on a PA to come back to base so that they can regroup. So Meryl and Millie go there. And the mayor reveals, our plant is starting to malfunction because half the town has become buried by the desert already. And they need the engineers to come and fix the plant to get the town saved. But they need money to do that, and they don't have the money. So when they found out Vash the Stampede was in town, they're like, we'll just kill him, get $60 billion double dollars. And the mayor called the Nebraska family, who...
What a weird concept, this whole thing.
This giant mutant man with a rocket-propelled fist, even though it still looks fleshy.
Uh-huh.
And his dad, which is like this old mad scientist that sits on his shoulder.
Is he in his shoulder or
no,
in the chest
he's
pocket?
strapped to his chest.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a chest pocket.
Maybe it's the other Nebraska family. Yeah.
He also, like, the big guy also has, like, a flared exhaust on the back of his head that's shooting out steam and going off like a foghorn. It's just really, really weird, all in all.
Really
but it's cool. Yeah.
I love the mayor assistant who's like, it's the sheriff, not mayor assistant. The sheriff is like, Nebraska family, what are you doing here? You were in prison. We let ourselves out. That's a jailbreak.
That's right. We let ourselves on our own recognizance.
Yeah.
This little girl runs up and she's like, hey, we caught Vash the Stampede. And then we see that Vash had snuck into a saloon to get a drink, and a bunch of waitresses and barmaids had caught him, and but then a giant rocket fist comes through the wall from the Nebraska family, and Vash
he knows it, which is another clue.
he senses
Like
it
he
coming.
knew something was coming, even though he couldn't see it or hear it.
And so even though they're buried under rubble, Vash is fine. They're all the barmaids are alive. He actually starts carrying them out of the rubble one by one, while the evil scientist dad guy is yelling like, "Oh, you don't kill people? What a hypocrite! You don't become the $60 billion double dollar man without killing somebody. Like, there's no way you're not a killer. You're just like us." So Vash challenges him to a duel, but they fire the fist at the waitresses laying on the ground. Instead, Vash has to run, dive in front of the fist, and shoots into the fist holes so that it steers away and crashes into a wall. And then he uses his last bullet to disarm, literally, the mutant guy, and then gets all the kids to join him in saying "love and peace," while Meryl is freaking out that, oh my God, that is Vash the Stampede. This whole time it was him.
Mm-hmm.
Then we continue, and I really like, the first couple episodes I find are really funny. I do like that we start getting like a series of connecting episodes here. It's still pretty episodic, but what happens in one is informing the other, and so the story is being created.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, a giant sand steamer has come into port, which is, it's like a ship coming into port, but obviously it came across the desert. And it not only brings a lot of trade for this town, but it brought the plant engineers. And
the Jawas came out. Oh, wait, wrong show.
It does. It's very reminiscent of a Sandcrawler.
Okay, so the engineers come out, Elizabeth comes out, and behind her is, and I literally wrote this down, Zerum the animation.
Yes!
Okay.
Yes!
And it's hilarious that we already referenced it once, but I was like, wait, is that Zerum the animation just standing behind her? Is anyone going to get that reference? For those who don't know, our practice podcast, we watched one of Jeremy's favorite OVAs, which was Zerum the animation from the early 90s. So that is the deep cut for Baka Baka Baka.
Awesome. Highly recommended. You got to go watch it. We all gave it 5s.
The live action's even better.
I do not remember giving that a 5.
I may have been the only one that gave it a 5.
So, but Elizabeth is the character that matters. She's the manager that's in charge of fixing the plant. And she confronts Vash, who's at the plant, pouring out a drink for his homies. And he sees her and he's like, obviously smitten. Vash has a type. She fits it. Mm-hmm. Meryl doesn't, which is interesting.
Yeah.
He likes the tall, pretty ladies. Anyway, she's like, yeah,
Not fully dressed either.
I'll give you the reward you want. Wink, wink. But you got to work for me, and I need a bodyguard. He's like, oh, yeah. So it's literally from then on, she calls him like her puppy, her dog. He follows her around like one. They see Meryl and Millie, and Meryl gets really upset about this. He escorts Elizabeth to her hotel. But, he has to sleep in his own separate room. He has to wait till after the job, she says. In his room, he gets attacked by an assassin, and the room ends up exploding with his bed laying in the street. And he defeats the assassin, runs away, and Elizabeth is like, what happened? He's like, I was attacked. And she's like, oh, I'm glad I switched the room numbers for our rooms. He's like, oh, I really wish you had told me you had done that. Okay. But now that I don't have a room, can I come sleep with you? No, your bed's fine out there. Never works out for Vash.
No. I actually think very highly of the dialogue writing for these scenes. As far as comedy-wise, they hit very, very well. It's good pacing. Good back and forth.
After getting yelled at by Meryl for the damage that will cost the insurance company to his hotel room, he goes to the plant with Elizabeth, and there's something wrong in one of the reactor rooms. So Vash and her go there, and the assassin is there waiting for them. Vash fights him off, but pretty easily defeats him. Like, literally is just dancing, dodging with Elizabeth to avoid him, and then shoots his equipment and stuns him on the floor. But then Elizabeth reveals that she's the one who hired the assassin to kill Vash and locks Vash in the room with the reactor and decides to just let the plant, overflow and explode. So she evacuates the rest of the plant because they were already struggling with it. The assassin wakes up and sees Vash just standing under the lights of the plant. And then we cut to outside while everyone's like, oh no, our town's going to die because if we lose the plant, that's it. We're all done. And then Vash emerges, and everyone's like, oh my god, the guy we just tried to kill yesterday saved the town again.
Again. Yeah.
I should also mention they turned in the reward for the Nebraska family. That's how they got the money to fix the plant. So that's not what I meant.
$700,000 double dollars or something like that.
Jeremy, I did forget to mention that. Why didn't you catch that?
I was waiting. I wanted to be sure.
So the reason.
So is it implied here that Vash fixed the plant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because it looked like he was just about to pray to whatever was coming down to him, and then all of a sudden everything's fine. So.
Yeah.
Okay. More details come.
So Vash goes outside and apologizes to Elizabeth for not dying. So she had revealed the reason she wants him to die is because Vash the Stampede is responsible for the destruction of June, literally a city that was. Oh, you're right. It's July. The city of July. Jeremy, that's what I said.
Yeah, all right.
Come on, Jeremy.
Get with it.
We could just gaslight him the rest of the.
Yeah,
right. Everything he says, we mentioned that.
Yep. You're right. No, it's July. He destroyed the entire city. No one died, but when 1 million people suddenly became homeless, that led to death. Their lives were ruined, and she was the daughter of one of these families. Her parents died, results, and the only memory she has is this wandering stranger who consoled her in the desert, who saved her. But she has always wanted to get revenge on Vash the Stampede. This was her chance. Lily was going to destroy a whole city herself to do it, and he points that out, like, I couldn't let you become like me. But also, I don't have a memory of what happened in July. I lost my memory of that. And she's really upset, and she starts crying, and he hugs her. And then she remembers, oh my God, this is literally the same guy who saved me in the desert all those years ago. The person I hate and the person who saved me were the same person, and that's where we leave it.
But she also, now I could be wrong, correct me if I am, she mentions, like, so it wasn't you who destroyed the town.
She does say that.
She does, in the fact that he doesn't know if it was him or not.
Mm-hmm. And then she says, well, why can't you just die anyways, so I feel better?
Yeah, but basically, like, okay, you're not the person I'm trying to kill, and you consoled me. But then the question becomes, because it looked like she was anywhere between 3 and 6 when she was crying, and now she's a fully grown woman, and he's still the same.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is.
Fair enough.
Good catch.
Anywho, after celebrating with the town all night long, and I never caught this earlier. This is the first time I caught this, that they bought 2 prostitutes for Vash, and he was too passed out, and so they left feeling sad. They're like, oh man, but Vash the hero. And then Vash, clearly not actually asleep, is like, do I regret it? Just a little bit. Maybe Adult Swim didn't air that or something, but I never picked up on, hey, we bought Vash some prostitutes. Because of all the womanizing he's done up to this point, the fact that he makes the choice of, no, I'm not here for that.
I think that actually is important for his character development. Mm-hmm.
He leaves in the morning on the sand steamer. The insurance lady puking. Sand steamer. And so we come to the sand steamer arc, and it's a 2-episode thing, but I'm gonna kind of go through it quickly.
Just before you do, I love that Meryl and Millie have run out of money, and they need to get in contact with the insurance company to get more money. But because of that, they're broke, and they can't pay the fee to get on the steamer.
So they have to work.
They get jobs.
So they get jobs.
And they're so pissed, at least Meryl is super pissed at him while she's trying to come up with the food that he's ordered.
So Vash had turned down an offer to be a guard for the ship because they're worried about the Bad Lad gang attacking him, and he's like, "Nope, I just want to ride the ship." And then he goes to the bathroom. Also, thank you for having a anime where people go to the bathroom. That doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
Gets bashed in the face by a vent from a stowaway in the vents. This kid, and this kid tells him this clearly a lie sob story. He even says like that was the worst sob story I've ever come up with. And Vash is like, "Oh, I totally believe you." So Vash takes the guard job to get a room to hide this kid in, and buys food from the insurance ladies to feed him because they're working the kiosk. And Millie's like, "Wow, that's enough to feed a growing young boy." Vash is like, "Oh my god, she is scary sometimes."
Yeah. It's a good thing she doesn't know how smart she is.
Right?
Yep.
He feeds the kid, and then Vash gets drugged by the kid and knocked out. And the kid goes off, and he's actually working for the Badland gang and putting sleep gas bombs throughout the sand steamer. The gang attacks. They take over the sand steamer.
Should we just call this the JoJo gang?
Yeah,
I never would have caught that, but for our visit with the other podcast, it just this was JoJo. They are totally right. That
This
the
is
cameos
Dio.
are everywhere. Yeah,
Dio boards the train.
exactly. And
This is totally
liked,
a train heist. Like 100% train heist.
Yeah, and I liked it more because of that. Yeah. Because of knowing that, I mean. That was really cool.
our guest spot on Simba for Senpai podcast where we talked
Yeah.
about JoJo is what Jeremy's referencing. And they pointed out to us how many references in anime there are to JoJo because JoJo's way older than any of us ever knew from manga form. So yeah, this guy definitely would fit in a JoJo.
Oh my gosh. He's got freaking neon lights all over him. It's hysterical.
And his name is like Neon
His
something
name is Neon.
Dynamite. But yeah, Neon is his name, and his entire gang is covered in neon lights, and he doesn't do anything unless it sparkles and shines. Like it's gotta be flashy. Even his gun like lights up like a toy laser gun to shoot bullets
before it fires.
Yeah. So they do take over the ship. They kill some people to get on. Vash, and they decide to crack open the safe. They're gonna crash the ship. And the boy who's helping them finds out about this and gets really upset and defensive of like, "Hey, no, do whatever you want. Just don't destroy the ship. This was my father's ship," he reveals. And the guy's like, "Nope, you're not fun anymore. Get away from me." Vash, who was having a dream about someone named Rem, and wakes up crying because Rem is gone. And we hear
he
Rem
saw
singing.
ReZero.
Yeah, he's a Rem fan.
Wow.
You'll take any straw. Take any straw you can grasp.
You betcha. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Rem means something new to me now."
Even he knew who was the better waifu.
That's right.
Vash saves this kid, and then comes up with a plan to defeat the gang. And they take out a couple guards, get their guns, go to the voice tube room where you can communicate around the ship, and he fakes a call for help to a certain part of the ship to get the bandits there. It gives the kid a radio pen. The kid's like, "Whoa, what do you have ancient technology like this? Like, no one has this." He's like, "Hey, don't worry about it." It's a long story. Vash goes out to go do his plan, but there's two guards that two bandits that happen to be walking by, and he ends up shooting them. And he gets shot too. He gets shot as well. And he's really upset now because it wasn't supposed to go down like this. And he stops to treat their wounds. Like, I'm not going to let them die. I got to save these people. And he's also bleeding. So now then he's going out through the sand steamer, but he's bleeding. And Neon figures out the whole plan, catches Vash in a trap, catches the kid. And he's holding Vash at gunpoint, but Meryl and Millie have snuck into bad guy costumes and save the day until the sand steamer starts to crash against the cliff wall that they're driving through. They're driving in a ravine. They start going against the cliff wall. So Neon challenges Vash to a duel. They go out onto the outer deck. They have a gunfight while the rocks are falling, which Vash uses for cover and jumps and manages to disarm Neon, whose giant shoulder pads are actually cannons that pull open and shoot. But
And
Vash,
he shoots both of them and destroys them.
Mm-hmm.
but they still work because he
No.
saves Vash 5 seconds
He
later
did it with
from
a pistol.
Oh, he did that with the pistol.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so Vash lands in a pool of his own blood because he reopened the wound from his earlier gunshot, and a rock's about to fall on him, even though he won the duel. And the guy saves him, and the gang's like, "Boss, finish him off." He's like, "Nope, we did a duel, and I agree that if we did the duel, if he won the duel, we would stop the sand steamer." So he lets the captain put on the brakes, but it's not working. The kid, who not only has blueprints from his father, and so he's got this huge emotional tie because his dad only cared about the steamer, but his dad was also a good person, and steamer's connected to his dad. He was rebelling. He sacrifices himself, gets himself hurt, not killed, to pulls a secret break in a place that you should.
Why would you
Horrible
put it there?
design, Dad.
Why would you put it there?
Crawl across these super hot tubes if you're tiny, and then pull the lever, and then that's how you stop the steamer in an emergency.
This felt like Snowpiercer.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Also, because they're not slowing down fast enough, the gang leader goes outside to his vehicle and then rams the sand steamer in the front to help divert it and slow it down because he's the man of his word. And everything kind of ends well. And then at the end, Vash is sitting with the kid on top of the sand steamer, and the kid sings this old classic song that he likes, and it was Rem's song, and Vash gets really emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Best part of this whole arc was when the kid was crying about his dad, and Vash grabs him and headbutts him 20 times into the ground and says, "Why you getting so emotional?" You feel better.
Yeah. I did crack up with that one. Yeah.
The one part that I cracked up, like the kid comes down, bashes him in the face. He's like, "Ow!" And so then he comes up, grabs the kid, and like, "You should apologize when you make someone bleed from the head." He's like, "You made yourself bleed from the head."
He jumped back in through the vent wall. He made himself bleed. Yep, classic Dash.
Yeah.
Now we get to the good stuff. Like, Trigun has been good up to this point, but there is one character that I'm always chomping at the bit. It's just better when he's around. He's a great foil, opposite side of the coin of Vash the Stampede. So Vash is currently, the people from the Sand Steamer are now riding a bus, a small bus with Millie and Meryl, and he sees out in the desert a lone man against a giant cross. And the bus stops and they save him. And this is Nicholas D. Wolfwood, who everyone calls Wolfwood. And he claims, "I am a priest of the cloth. This crosses my trade. Thank you guys for saving me. Oh my gosh, this is Vash the Stampede." Crack, crack, crack. Snap his head around. "Oh my God, he looks like such an idiot." Crack, crack, crack. Nicholas D. Wolfwood, hero to orphans. What do you guys think of Wolfwood?
He is like the other side of the coin to Vosh as far as these last couple episodes go. I like his commentary. I like his suaveness. And also, he just feels like a scoundrel, even though he's like, "Oh, I'm a man of the cloth. I'm a priest with loads of guns."
Yeah.
Also, like, how I love that. "Oh, this is my cross to bear," because it's literally twice as high as he is. But he carries it like it's nothing. But yeah, he's interesting. It's hard to put my finger on, but I like the character.
Yeah. So Wolfwood's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, head and tails above Millie and Meryl for me. But it's there's so much about him that really comes into play in the second half. But in the first half, what I really love is that you get this sense that, like you're saying, he's like the other side of the coin for Vash, but in a way that is sort of marred by failure, right? Like, he looks at Vash and sees everything that he aspires to be, but he isn't as good as Vash, and that happens. We really get a showcase of it later during a particular competition, and what happens afterwards, where well, not the competition so much, but what happens afterwards in the sequence with the kids that are fleeing, And he doesn't come up with a solution that actually solves things without bloodshed. But he wanted to. He would have preferred that. And so it kind of bugs him, but at the same time, he is really impressed by Vash. So he has this sort of relationship of, I aspire to be like you. I wish I was like you, but you also irritate me because I know I can't. I know I'm not. And that's just complex enough to make him a really fun, interesting character to kind of add to the ambience of the atmosphere around Vash.
Obviously, with the main characters, there's not a bad one that I dislike, and it's hard to put them who's favorite. It really depends on the viewing. And Wolfwood gets even better in the second half, and I have that coming in as I do this review. What I really loved, especially this time, was that he is a character who's almost at Vash's level. Like you said, he's not as good as Vash. He can't really compete with Vash and do everything Vash does, but he's the Dragon Ball Z character that can still follow the Super Saiyans with his eyes and can tell the other characters what's going on. He has insights into Vash that Meryl and Millie and everyone else we've ever met, just are so outclassed that you can't recognize. Like,
So you're saying he's Tien?
Yes,
for a while,
or Piccolo.
Yeah,
not Krillin.
No, I mean for a while, but not as long as Piccolo.
Krillin's more powerful than Tien. You just have to get over that.
Hey, Piccolo doesn't have a Destructo disc.
That's true. He doesn't need one.
It's got 3 dudes inside of him.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay, tangent. My bad.
That's a great clip, by the way.
Right?
He's got 3 dudes inside him.
Okay. But Wolfwood is a great character because of the insights he brings to Vash. Not only because he's frustrated about the stuff he can't do, but he's trying to figure out the mystery of Vash as we're like, okay, what is going on with this guy? And that I thought was really fun. So
okay, never mind. When we get to it, I'll make mention of it. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna go through these a little bit. We're gonna have to speed up a little bit here for these last 4, and I really want to take some time on that last one. So the Wolfwood story, he's riding the bus with the guys. They take a stop. We find out that not only does he have a church, but it's really an orphanage, and that's his passion, is taking care of orphans. As he travels around, he collects orphans that are in need of help and brings them to his orphanage. So he also has to earn a trade to take care of them. He can't just be a man of the cloth. He does that by carrying around this little tiny church that'll put on your head, and you can put a coin in and do a confessional to a priest. It'll work great. But we also get this great scene of him feeding these very hungry children with his last few food rations, because children matter so much to him. Meanwhile, a passenger is hurt by something mysterious. They all run, and there's a giant robot spider tank thing running at them. So everyone jumps in the bus, and they run away from this army of spider tanks. There's robot spider tank and Trigun. Hello. But one of the little girls that he had just given food to was left behind. So Vash and Wolfwood jump out of the bus without even thinking. And Vash is like, "You don't have a weapon." Wolfwood's like, looks back at the bus. It's like, "You're right, I don't." So Vash gives him a knife. And then they scout out the robots, but then Wolfwood just runs in and attacks it with a knife, which breaks. Vash starts shooting the robots, taking them out easily, but he misses one, and Wolfwood kills it with what's left of the knife. Eventually, they make it to the little girl, and she's being whisked away by one of the last robots. They save her, but fall into quicksand, end up in what Vash describes as a spaceship full of aliens.
I did love the little girl. She's like, "What an embarrassing way to go."
Yeah. And also, kids, this is the 90s, so quicksand was everywhere. We never encountered it, but according to television, it was everywhere.
Especially in G.I. Joe.
Yep.
So, inside the spaceship, there's more robots, so they fight through them. And Vash gives his gun to Wolfwood while he goes down to the control center to try to turn off the robots. Wolfwood's like, "I've never shot a gun before," and then hits every target dead center. Which is clearly a big lie if you've seen any farther past this.
Yes.
But Vash gets cornered, and and Wolfwood runs out of bullets, and then suddenly the robot's heads explode by someone else shooting them, and he's like, "What's going on?" He looks down at Vash, who's got an arm that's smoking for no reason, and then Vash goes inside the control room and tells the robots there's no reason to protect anyone anymore, and turns them off. And then Meryl and Millie break through the ceiling and save them, or injure them. Either it's fuzzy. They get back on the bus, and Wolfwood cuddles with Millie in her seat and forcing Meryl to sit with Vash, and they continue on their way to the city where Wolfwood says goodbye.
One quick question,
Yep.
because that was very impressive. It was almost all in one breath.
What I do?
Quick question is, in the first encounter where Vash shoots one of the spider mechs or spider robots that's chasing the little girl, it doesn't kill it, doesn't even seem to damage it. Now, we know Vash is such a good shot. Why not? Why didn't he just take it out?
Did he not know its vulnerable spot yet? Maybe that was. I'm guessing.
Maybe.
I don't know.
The only other thing I could come up with as a possible answer is because he would prefer not even to kill it.
Maybe.
That's the only thing I could think of.
I like that.
Yeah. Like, it moves. It's a spider, and we don't want to kill the spider.
I mean, he apologizes to an egg later for eating it.
Yeah, he does. It's true.
Or thanks it or says goodbye to it. Either way, but yeah. So I could see that.
Yeah.
In the next episode, after playing with some children in the town, Vash follows this young child to his family restaurant where his mom works. And hey, Wolfwood's there cooking for the bomb.
I love the first thing the kid tells Vash is, "My mom is off limits."
Yeah.
So Wolfwood explains, hey, this mom has come into debt because the father has disappeared and trying to run this restaurant. And there's a quick draw tournament that's coming up. And hey, I signed you up, Vash, and I want you to win the tournament. And Vash is like, all right, I'll do it. I'll help. That night, Wolfwood gets them all very drunk. The insurance ladies as well. Great scene. You just see the window and Millie, you take it off, big girl. Yeah.
That's not what's said in the sub.
Oh, what do they say?
If I remember correctly, it says, Millie, what are you doing? Stop that. So I think they made it a little bit more clear, maybe what was intended.
Yeah,
and it's left more ambiguous.
They do have Meryl saying, Millie, don't do that. But then they have Wolfwood and Vash being like, you go, big girl.
That's funny.
Yeah, and there's no mouths to sync up to. You can do whatever you want, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
The mayor of the town sees that Vash has entered and is like, it's probably not the real Vash, so it's fine. But they're also clearly setting this up for nefarious purposes. The next day, a hungover Vash accidentally does very well in the early parts of the tournament and reveals to Wolfwood that he signed him up too. You had to compete as well. And like, there's a guy in a backwards costume who tries to cheat, but he still loses to Vash.
I love that you get like a cameo of him walking in the very beginning.
Yeah, where he walks forward into it and then walks backwards out of it.
Something's not right about this guy.
And he talks to them, but his mouth never moves.
Yeah, exactly.
You thought, like, wow, that's an animation cut. But nope, it's no purpose. Eventually, it comes down to Vash and
should mention something that was important that took place is that
the pebbles.
Yeah, because it turned into, instead of just being a competition of accuracy, it became duels. And so, of course, Vash can't let people die. So he was throwing some pebbles, and right as guns were shot, you'd see him throw a pebble. And then Wolfwood even, I think he said it out loud,
yeah,
you sure are good at knocking bullets off course with pebbles. So he's actually that good that he can aim a pebble and hit a bullet.
Yep, and they point out, like, this is weird. No one's died this year.
Mm-hmm.
Wolfwood goes to surrender or to resign out of the tournament because that way Vash will win. They'll get the money. And then the mayor's like, nope, you had to kill Vash and Stampede. We took the mom hostage. Kill him and we'll get the $60 billion. We'll split it. And that's because it is the real Vash and Stampede. So they go and Wolfwood is ready for the next fight. And Vash is like, wait, what's going on? He's like, see over there? See them being abducted? Yeah, this is going to be real. You just have to die for the $60 billion. and they have a gunfight, and they both get shot, and they both fall down to a pool of blood. But it's just ketchup because that's their move. And then they get up and they shoot all the guards in the entire town. And Wolfwood opens his cross for the first time, and it's just full of like Glocks that he just pulls out and just goes to town. And he doesn't like it when you pick on kids, but he doesn't kill anyone at Vash's request, even though he wounds a lot of people.
Yep.
And this ketchup gag is like the third time it's happened.
Yes.
No, it's so overdone. And I love how they both stand up and each one's holding a ketchup bottle. And like it's supposed to be so cool. Like, yeah, see, we knew it just doesn't come off cool at all. It comes off really dumb.
Best part of this episode, though, was when Wolfwood is asking Vash to do the quick draw tournament. He's like, it's a long story, but it's kind of a short one. I love that line so much. That's like something out of a Will Ferrell movie. Oh, whoever wrote that back then. Good job. And then our next episode, we catch up with a trading caravan that is currently stuck due to steam vents rising up out of the desert. They're having to wait for the steam to settle. Wolfwood is gambling on a chess game and losing terribly. This is the pudding scene. Millie actually comes in to buy pudding, and then when she doesn't get pudding, she helps Wolfwood win his. He tried to cheat because he has no money, and he needed this to be able to pay for fare.
The cat like sinks its claws into his hand.
Yeah.
So Millie helps him win the chess thing. So he buys her a ton of pudding, and as they're walking back together, the dancing girl that definitely needs dancing lessons, according to Wolfwood.
You know, when I first saw her dancing, I was like, wow, they really didn't animate that well. It's so bad. And then he called it out, and I was like, oh, that's right. I remember now.
She's running from some men, and they let her hide behind them. And the Wolfwood's like, hey, yeah, she's right behind us. Now, what are you going to do about it? You need to answer my question. And they step on one of Millie's pudding because she had just dropped it while answering a random question about how many brothers and sisters she had because she's Millie. And this guy steps on the pudding, so Millie pulls out her stun gun and blasts all the men. And Wolfwood's like, you dropped the pudding, though.
Yeah.
But they decide to help the girl, so they hide her under Millie's coat.
Make it look like
she's pregnant while she's holding on to Wolfwood and calling him honey and dear, and then grabs the cigarette out of his mouth and like smoking's better for the baby, honey.
You must be carrying sextuplets.
Right?
This is a scene that's etched in my mind as like epitome of Trigun's silliness. Like it's a great scene.
A grown girl hanging on pretending to be the pregnant belly.
They escort this girl out to outside of the caravan, where there's a young man waiting for her, whose name is Julius, and the girl's name is Moore. At the same time, Julius's father hires Vash to Stampede to get Julius, and we learned from both conversations at the same time that Julius is not the real son of the head of the caravan. He's the son of the town that they do a lot of trading with, and he is the pass that lets them enter the town. As long as the son is safe, they can enter the town. So that pass is important. But he had been raised by the caravan guy as his father instead. But Julius had learned that they were trading humans, slaves. Mm-hmm. And this girl is one of them. And so he's going to run away with her. And Wolfwood points out, without that, the caravan's going to die, and then people will die without the caravan to take care of them. You are literally killing people with your actions. And he's like, well, I can't support a caravan that's doing these evil actions. So Wolfwood pulls out a gun, points it at Julius at first, and then points at his own head. He's like, fine, if you're fine with people dying, then if you go, I'm going to kill myself. And Julius walks past him. He pulls the trigger, but it doesn't go off. And then Millie decides she's going to go with them because they're going out into the steam vents where they could get hurt. So Millie goes with to take care of them. And I love Wolfwood's line of like, she does make doing the right thing look so easy, and really irritates me.
Yeah.
Didn't even hesitate. He's so like enamored with it.
Yeah.
Vash takes the job for $20 million double dollars. And so him and Meryl get in a car and drive out, and she's like, "What are you gonna do?" He's like, "I'm gonna kill him. That's what I was hired to do." And she pulls a gun on him, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't let her stop the car though, and so she eventually puts it away. Millie gets badly burnt by the steam trying to protect these kids. I say kids, but they're like 18, right? Older teenagers. Then some goons from the caravan find them, capture them, but Wolfwood shows up and saves them. But then more goons come, and Vash the Stampede comes. He pulls out his gun and he shoots Moore and Julius. And they're like, "Wait, you weren't supposed to hit them." He's like, "I did my job. Leave the money, or or I'm gonna Vash the Stampede you." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's what you get for hiring a crazy man." And they leave. Millie, really upset, walks up and punches Vash right in the face, knocks his glasses off. Wolfwood comes up next, steps on his glasses, takes his gun, pulls out the bullets. It's like, "You used rubber bullets," and then shoots Vash with his own rubber bullets. And we see that Julius and Moore are both fine. And this had been set up by the father of the caravan. He wanted to help them escape, and $20 million is actually for them. And they're able to leave and go.
Of course, they don't take it. They don't want the help, so they don't take the money or the vehicle.
Oh, did I saw they didn't take the vehicle. I did miss they didn't take the money. Huh.
Yeah, it's still laying down there in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
No, Troy already mentioned this.
Yeah.
This is also where Wolfwood leaves, but with reflection on, I couldn't think of a way for anyone. This is very much what you were talked about earlier, Jeremy. He couldn't think of a way to get out of this without anyone dying, and Vash the Stampede found the way.
And it's funny because, in all honesty, there's no way, given the information available to Wolfwood, that he should have been able to come up with this solution. But he's still hard enough on himself that, like, if he did it, I should have been able to do it.
This does bring up something I love about Vash, is that he uses that reputation and that to his advantage. There's a reason he doesn't like go around saying, sometimes he'll say, "I'm not who I am," but a lot of times he's like, "Hey, get away, I'm the evil crazy Vash, you all gotta run." Yeah. That reputation actually serves him quite well, even though it's also the reason half the towns get destroyed.
Yeah. That just makes the reputation more potent.
All right. Then we come to episode 12, which is really the teaser for what's coming in the second half of Trigun. We see a mysterious man who we find out is Legato, and a guy who has been physically training in captivity for 20 years, whose name is Monev the Gale. He's going to be released to do the job they put him in there to do, and that is to kill Vash the Stampede. Vash he visits a boot repairman, and then we see him the next day like sitting under a blue sky and thinking of Rem, and he gets hit in the face with a basketball, and he plays with some kids with the ball. But then Legato shows up and talks to him psychically through his mind, telepathically, and warning him like, "Hey, you're gonna die," and even makes him think he killed a kid for a second.
Well, what's interesting is this doesn't startle Vash all that much, the actual psychic connection, which is another thing I'm like going, well, this is apparently normal for him.
Yep.
Vash is like, "Wait a minute." Well, actually, no. He gets arrested because Legato leaves him a present, which is the body of the boot repairman that Vash had visited, framing Vash for his murder. So Vash is chained up in a jail cell, and he's like, "Who could be behind this? Who is Legato?" And he's like, "Wait, could it be him?" Then we see a flash of a guy who's like, "Hey, Vash, how you doing?"
It shouldn't. I'm pretty sure that's not what's in the bag.
What's in the bag?
Yeah, but that is definitely what we're made to think. I'm pretty sure that what's in the bag has more to do with what's coming up in the next half. Okay. They make it look like it's like his tongue or something.
Okay.
Yeah, he can't speak. He can't speak.
But
right, they like give that implication.
I thought he died.
Yeah, I thought he was dead too.
That's what's super weird is that the lady keeps saying he can't speak, he can't speak. She never says, like, she says there's been a murder, but then she keeps saying he can't speak, he can't speak. And then we're never told what that meant.
You can't speak when you're dead.
It's
So-
true. It's true. And it is a creepy looking bag, but
That he
But
pulls
yeah.
a hot dog out of and gives to a kid.
right, right. So what's in the bag?
I do love the shot of where he psychically sends the image to Vash of grabbing the little girl's head and squishing it, and then as soon as Vash looks, his hands are in the air. Nope, wasn't
I'm
real.
not doing anything. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then this is the scene I talked about, like with layers. So, Millie and Meryl come to visit him in jail, and when Millie walks in, his eyes are glowing white, which is important in this episode because the other guy, when he comes to kill Vash, his eyes are glowing white, signifying eyes of a killer, right? She walks in and sees the eyes of a killer and backs out afraid. But then when they come in, there's the soft, kind-hearted Vash smiling at them like, hey, how are you doing? God, I love that scene.
And he's like, yeah, you guys got to go. You
gotta
can't
leave.
be here.
But it's too late because Monev is there and he has Gatling gun gauntlets
Mm-hmm.
and he destroys the jail but grabs Vash and he's like, oh, 20 years and it was this easy. They told me you were a coward and this would be, you wouldn't raise a finger. Can't believe it's going to be this easy. He smacks Meryl when she tries to help, but Millie fires her stun gun and because of ricochets, it breaks Vash's chains.
I can't remember exactly, but I thought Vash did something, but it could have just been ricochets.
The stun gun was the first event. The chain breaking is the last event. There's a lot of things that happen in between there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I can officially tell you.
Yeah.
Vash runs out into the street, and as he's running, he's trying to get the rest of the people to leave. He's like literally throwing people into their homes. He's firing his gun at people who he's like, you gotta leave. Yeah, right. Shoots at them so that they'll duck right when the Gatling gun fires by. But eventually he reaches like a public area and Monev opens fire and kills just men, women, children, everything in his way. And he's like, oh, this is going to be too easy. And then I get to do whatever I want. 20 years are basically wasted. Gets multiple gunshots right to his faceplate that luckily don't go through. But I don't think Vash knew that.
I don't either.
Yeah. That's something I want to touch on because again, I mentioned this is a show that's analyzing pacifism. Vash struggles with it's not automatic. I never kill. Like Vash constantly is like, should I maybe kill? Is there a time I should kill? And keeps coming up with this. And this is the biggest one. He ends up in a fight with this guy where he uses a bank door to knock him down. Fires his last 2 bullets to disarm him, but it's not enough. He needs another shot. His arm turns out he has a robot arm, and it turns into a gun, and he gets another shot. And Monev is like, he had that the whole time? And the audience goes, wait, he's had that the whole time? All those situations that seem dire, they actually weren't that dire, because if they were dire, Vash had a second gun. Almost like it should be called Duo Gun.
I know,
It's
right?
called Trigun.
How
That's
weird is
weird.
that? Must have been a misnomer.
We're jerks. Sorry, Jason.
I think I see what you did there.
Shoves the robot gun into his Monev's face. Monev starts begging for his life, and Vash is like, "You killed those people. You're going to die." But then pulls himself back at the last second, spares him, and it's like a scene of him hugging himself and crying and thinking, "I should let him live, right? That's the right thing to do." And that's where we end.
Talking to Rem again.
Yeah.
In his head.
Good old, not Amelia.
That's right. You're not
Jason-
even going to give her a name.
I don't want to make you theorize because that wouldn't be fair. But your thoughts on kind of how this changed from where we were, especially with this last episode.
Okay, so there's a weird scene that happens. I think it's right before the quick draw event. He's cooking eggs, or well, he's practicing with his gun.
Forgot the
And-
egg scene.
Huh?
I forgot the X scene. I wanted to talk about that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So he wakes up, his hair is messy, which I thought was fantastic. I was like, oh, wow, a different view of Ash. And he's doing this quick draw thing, and he's like playing with the egg, and you see both his hands, and they look both human hands.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had theorized beforehand, I was like, why is that arm always wrapped in felts? And I was like, is that like a robot arm or something? And then I see this scene, and he's got two human hands. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it's not. He just likes wrapping it in that. But then at the end of this, he goes and he's got a gun arm.
Mm-hmm.
So either it's a prosthetic that fits over his real hand, or he doesn't have an arm and he's just got really good makeup at some points when he wakes up in the morning. I don't know. There's a lot of questions there that seem inconsistent. But one thing I did notice about his design is his gun arm has the same thing on his elbow that both of his legs have.
Mm-hmm. The pad.
The pad. So I'm wondering if his robot arm has a pad. Does that mean his legs are also robot legs because they have pads? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as theorizing, I'm wondering if he's human at all. I'm wondering, is he a time traveler, or is like either he's seen these events before and that's how he's so lucky, or because that would fit in with what happened on the Sandcrawler when he got shot. He was like, those two guards were not supposed to be there. Like, and what do you mean not supposed to be there? Like, you've seen this before and they weren't there in your vision, or they weren't there in your previous viewing of this situation. Or he's got some sort of other powers, which would lead into the telekinetic, or not telekinetic, but telepathy. Like, he's got some sort of supernatural ability, and maybe he's alien or divine, something like that. So, yeah,
He's a vampire.
Huh?
He's a vampire.
Wrong show.
Oh, that's right. I am a vampire to vampires.
A vampire with robot legs and arms. So, I mean, maybe he's Anakin.
There you go. Very interesting. As far as the robot hand, remember how the Nebraska guy, he had that robot hand that would shoot, but when the hand was shot, it looked real, but when it was shot, it didn't bleed.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, even based on what I know, that the cybernetic hand was just that level.
Oh, so it's got like Terminator glove.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker hand.
That would make sense.
Shot. Yeah.
Yep.
I want to talk about the egg scene, mostly because of Jeremy. You had sent a message on our private chat just about how you forgot how powerful Bash was and how OP he was. But you mentioned something I've never thought about, which is his improvisational skills. Not only does he have insane skills and reflexes, but he improvises really well. And the egg scene, I thought, was so perfectly well captured that and really emphasized your point. Because he does that practice with the egg, where he has the balancing on the end of his gun, and then he brings the gun all the way down, all the way back up, and catches the egg without it breaking, showing, oh, I'm super fast, I'm super powerful. But he misses once.
Yep.
But the egg obviously breaks, but he doesn't lose the egg. We see him eating it a few seconds later, which means he still managed to catch it in a pan and then cook it, showing that, I mess up. I'm not perfect in my powers, however you want to call them. But I have the ability to adapt to my mistakes so well that it doesn't really result in anything bad anyway.
Exactly.
And, when you called that out and I saw that egg scene, I thought I remember what you said. And I was like, oh, he nailed that.
Yeah, that's what that was. Exactly. I really noticed it when Meryl and Millie were standing at the top of that water slide with the water baron in episode 2. And he goes flailing and falling down there. And Meryl says, I thought he said we were going to sneak up behind him. And I was like, oh, okay, so he threw himself down the water slide to make a ruckus because he knew there wasn't time to sneak up behind him because he was going to shoot her, right? And there's a bunch of situations like that where he just improvises his way in. nothing is clean. Nothing is well prepared for.
All right, let's go to our final review. Jason, why don't you start us off?
I have a feeling the second half of this anime is going to be much stronger. But if I'm just going to judge it on the first 12 episodes, I have to give it a solid 3. The silliness is not in my wheelhouse. Some of the jokes landed with me, but I don't think I laughed out loud once. I may have snickered or chuckled, but like that comedy is not just for me. And it really didn't get interesting. It just felt very episodic, and we're just following this silly guy that is mistaken as a ruthless criminal until around episode 9, and then it started to get really interesting about like who he is, what's his background, why is he having these visions of this REM. There's alien tech now, what's going on? So like there's a lot of cool stuff happening all of a sudden. So like I'm excited to find more out about it, but like I said, if I'm just going to judge it on what I saw this week, it's a 3 for me.
Hey, Jeremy, what'd you give it?
So I wish I could give it a 5, but I can't give it a 5. You're absolutely right. It is very episodic for a good portion of it. And I've seen a lot of anime since I saw Trigun. And so in some ways, the bar has been raised, especially for this first half. So while I do think that I would still give the second half a 5, and I'm going to watch it just to make sure. And also because I want to. And I think as a whole, I would give it a 5. I would give this first half a 4, and I think the main reasons why I would do that is because the art didn't hold up. There are some physics things that do kind of bug me now looking back at it, and just overall that sense that this is not anything super spectacular for the first half. Like I have seen this before, but is that really fair though? Because of the time that it was produced, it maybe wasn't so well trodden, this path, right? So I don't know, but I'm gonna give it a 4, and I guess that's just my score at this point in my anime viewing experience.
Well, I can agree that like the dub, I could definitely tell had aged. We've come a long way with dubbing. It still had a charm for me though. The animation, the scene where they're riding on the bus, for some reason, like everyone looks like a cartoon more than an anime character. In that scene, there's definitely some age on it, but this is still a 5. This is Trigun. This is one of the best there is, and I'm not going any less. When I became an adult and moved out on my own, the very first dog I ever bought was a corgi because of Cowboy Bebop, but I named him Bash the Stampede, the canine typhoon. Because of Trigun.
Was he a typhoon?
He was. It was a bit of a handful, and I wasn't very good with dogs back then. But yeah, so 5 out of 5 for me. Trigun's one of the best. And while watching this, I went and watched the final battle in the final episode, and I do that twice a year. I bring it up on YouTube and I watch it, and it's still amazing every time. It's not fair. I can't include that in this review. That's not what we watched, but it's Trigun, man. I'm not going less than a 5. No way. 5 out of 5. All right. Our next anime, I'm sorry, I forgot to announce it earlier. It's Takt Destiny. This is an anime about monsters who hate music and magical girls who battle them, led by people who conduct them to do battle. It's got a lot of classical music interweaved in it in this battle anime. I also when I was looking up how many episodes it was, just to make sure it's just 12. We're not going to need 2 episodes to review it. But they said it's part of a multimedia project, so I think there's a game out there for Takt as well. So that might be a factor into our thing. But that's the next anime we're watching. 12 episodes.
Nothing to do with Sec Up, right? Magical Girl.
No.
Yeah,
I
this
did-
is the next season of.
I did want to do Call Me Can't Communicate, but I just don't think comedy animes work in our podcast format as much as I've been liking that series when my daughter had it on. She thought it was pretty funny. But Takt Destiny is next. Also, stuff I really want to watch, Ranking of Kings, 86. They're just not done yet. I keep checking. I'm like, how are you not done? We just did our special episodes. But yeah, this is the end of the special episodes as well.
Yep.
With that, it is time for us to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Love and peace. Love and peace. Love and peace.
Sayonara.